You are listening to Unguarded, a podcast on relationships and life and every season. My name is Joe Smith. So happy you're here. I have a special guest with me today. Just happened to be with me every week.
That's cute. I'm Beck, and
Beck what?
Beck Smith.
That's right.
That's right.
And
then we're the Smiths,
we are.
and we're so excited that you have joined us. This is a passion project that we feel passionate about, relationships and love, and we hope you enjoy it.
And it's been fun. We're like 1 month in. This is
Yes.
like 1 month anniversary.
Oh wow!
Right? It's like pretty awesome and exciting. And last week
Gosh.
or 2 weeks ago, we talked about, got a little spicy, talking about sex, and it was great. Feedback from all over the world was really incredible and helpful for a lot of people, which was the goal.
Yeah, I think that this is definitely that episode was definitely the one that obviously hit me the most. I didn't know I was gonna cry so much, and it meant so much to me. And then I loved receiving all the text messages from so many people, just like thanking us for going there. And I don't know, it just reminded me like, okay, this is the reason why we're doing this podcast. And as much as it's terrifying every single time to be like, I don't know where we're going to go with this. I don't know what part of me I have to share, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. You're worth it, America.
Yes, you are.
And the rest
And
of the world.
the rest of the world? No, just America.
You start with America. This is home base. And then we extend beyond. But yeah, so it was just really cool just to hear how people really responded to that episode in particular, but also people who don't carry the same values. That for me was really awesome. That people were like, oh, I don't know if I would say I would make the same choices or have the same core principle or value as you, but I really appreciate your perspective. And now I've got something to think about, and I feel like it sparked a lot of conversations with couples. It sparked a lot of conversations with people who are married, and then also sparked a lot of conversation with our single friends.
Yeah, that's true.
That are like, okay, give us more. We want more. We
give
have
us
more
part
questions.
two.
And so people kept asking for part two, and I know you're like, I feel like I gave everything I had in that one episode. I don't know if I want to go there again, but I feel like you got to give the people what they want.
It's true.
And they wanted part two.
I mean, I think I was like, oh yeah, we definitely have to do part two. But now I'm here. I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I say yes to this?
But we did.
But
Cameras are rolling. And yeah, because it's such a important conversation.
Yeah.
It's integral to relationships on every level and every scale and every lane. And I think people are really trying to find health in these conversations. They're trying to find their own story and also what makes sense to me, what is valuable to me. How do I even engage these conversations with my partner, with my spouse, or with somebody that I'm pursuing a relationship with? So are there places you feel like we could dive a little deeper in when it comes to the sex talk, or maybe things that we hit on a surface level or just skimmed over, but then we can maybe dive in a little deeper?
Well, one thing that came up is I had a conversation with a girl today, and she just came out of an unhealthy relationship. And then when I was like, oh, you should listen to the episode, and she was like, one thing that I loved about it was you shared that I said, like, I don't want to belittle myself or lower my standards for the sake of someone else. And I think maybe I botched the way she said it. But what she said, I was like, I don't even know if I said that exactly, but I loved what you just shared. Because I think that is the truth, that in reflecting and going back to my early 20s and those relationships that were super unhealthy, that every single time I was lowering my standards for someone else, as though their needs and their wants were more important than mine. And that was like shocking to go back and see that young girl that I once was, and like think to myself, why would I even think for a second that that was something that was necessary? Like, I think I was raised a little bit, or I became a people pleaser. And so that seeped into my relationships. And I think a lot of people can relate. If you're a people pleaser, you know how that feels, that you just kind of roll into it. And then if someone needs something, even if you don't feel totally comfortable, you're like, no, what am I thinking? Of course it's fine. And you just lower your standards, and you like just belittle yourself every time you cross that line for someone else, because you think that their needs are more important than yours.
Sure, yeah.
And I think, you know, from this last podcast, my hope was that people would, like, if they're in that situation, that they would make a new choice. Like, if I could have heard this podcast when I was in my 20s, I would have said to myself, you're right, I need to get out. It would have given me the courage. So I hope that that first podcast would give people the courage. And I think it's great if we talk about the good things that come from waiting, and the good things that come from, like, restraining from past patterns that are really unhealthy.
So what were some of the good things that came from waiting? Or even maybe another step back, because that was some of the you know, questions that we had from people, or, like, you know, responses was, hey, can you give us some practical tools that you guys implemented to help? You know, because one thing to say, oh, this is our intention. Yeah. It's a whole other thing to then put practices in place to put yourself in the best, you know, case scenario. Yeah. You know, so yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that I would never have met you, or if I met you, I don't think I would have been ready for you, or you wouldn't have said yes to me if I hadn't made the choices, you know, a year or two earlier to start getting my life in order, and, like, start finding my voice. And my relationship with Jesus was so key to that, and reminding who I am, and that I'm loved, and that I'm enough, and that Jesus is enough, you know? And I didn't need to be in a relationship to feel values.
Yeah. Yeah, you were single and thriving.
Not thriving. That's
thriving?
After. Yes, you're right. Sorry, I was thinking you meant before. No, I was definitely single and thriving. Like, I was telling this girl today, I'm like, I started I shared in the last episode, I went to church. That changed everything. I started reading the scriptures. I started, like, really trusting Jesus with everything in my life. And
there are other practical things that you did, not faith-oriented or faith-based. All those things are obviously beautiful and important. And
Yeah. I do remember I was like, okay. So I remember being doing nothing on a Saturday night. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? Because I don't know, I wasn't dating anyone. So I was like, okay, what do I want to do? Even if it terrifies me, I'm now saying, like, I have to do it. And the thing that I did was I went to this, like, bar that had live music. And in Melbourne, there's so much great live music. So I went just to hear the live music. I was like, okay, I'm by myself. And I remember
there's this Sunday gospel hour. I remember going and visiting Beck in Australia. You remember this in Melbourne?
I don't remember taking you, but that's
funny. We should go check out Sunday gospel choir. I was like, in Melbourne, Australia? What do y'all know about gospel music in Melbourne, Australia? And it was funky. It was like, it had a great sound, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Oh, there's so much soul in Melbourne, and I think, like, no, it wasn't. I mean, one of the guys was who ended up doing that years later, but I remember being at this live music and meeting this other musician, and he was like, oh yeah, I come here all the time to listen to music, and I follow this band. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna come. So I just started becoming friends with people that loved live music.
Yes.
So that was, like, my first, like, okay, I'm just going to choose something that gives me joy. And
it was live music.
It was live music.
Cool.
And there was a great scene in Melbourne.
And how did that correlate? Live music.
I think it was just like, okay, I need to do something that brings, like, have the confidence to do something that I normally would have waited for someone else to be like, hey, do you want to go and see this band? I was always waiting for someone else in my life. And I felt like I was like, be courageous and do something that you love and you can go by yourself.
Sure.
It's funny because I feel like I don't go to the movies by myself, but I know a lot of people do. You've been by yourself.
Plenty of movies, yeah. Would prefer them sometimes over movies with people. Yeah, it's a lot quieter.
Other than with me, of course.
Of course, yeah.
But I feel like those are the things I was always terrified to do. I had a twin sister, so my whole life was doing it with someone else. So that was, I think, the breaking part of me of like, you don't have to wait for someone else to choose to do the thing you love. And that was one of the things I loved, so I was going to do it. And then, of course, I met people along the way, made friends. And, you know, it just gave me confidence. And I'm like, I can choose my life. I think that's the thing. It's like when you get locked into a like bad relationship, your world gets smaller. And when I gave everything to God, he just helped me see that my life could be so much bigger. And I could choose to live it. I could choose my life. And I feel like, yeah, it was a big thing for me.
Yeah. So we're talking about sex, and a lot of people have questions and they have thoughts, they have worries, they have hang-ups. And maybe we could go somewhere, we could park it here for a second of going practical tools. If somebody's here and they're listening, going, okay, maybe this is even a foreign concept that you're talking about, not having sex before I get married, waiting, you know, to go there intimately with somebody before you commit to spend the rest of your life, right? Somebody's like, okay, I'm processing that, I'm thinking through that, I'm debating it. What do I do? How is that even possible? What are practical steps that somebody could take if that's a value that they want to step into? What did you do? What did we do? You know, I feel like let's give people some handlebars on how you can put yourself in a position to step into that future that you want.
Well, I think for me, it was first trusting God and like actually giving him everything. And then it was coming to LA, which don't think I would have ever had the courage if I didn't have that thought or that dream that there could be something waiting for me on the other side of it. And getting to Mosaic changed me completely because this community is obviously amazing and beautiful, and I have my dearest friends here, but I've been the most challenged, and it's like my character got refined here. Before, I thought I was good and I thought I was strong, and in some ways I was, because I was way better than I was before, but I wasn't fully there until I stepped into Mosaic and I met you, and you were like so much. You were kind, strong. You moved slowly, and you respected me, and you challenged me, and just like in my choices, I guess.
Did you move slow as well? Just curious.
You just love bringing this up.
Bringing what up? I didn't bring anything up. I just asked a question.
Look, you love telling the story.
It's a great story. It
really
helps
kills
people.
me, what kills me, I just cannot believe you, Joe, is that, you know, we have a 9 and a 7-year-old.
We do.
And you told them, like, oh yeah, they were asking, I guess, maybe like how we met.
Yeah, they're asking about our date,
Our first
date or
date.
something. Yeah.
And you go, oh yeah, ask your mom about what happened at the beach. And then they come up to me, Mom, what happened at the beach? I was like, I'm not telling you that story.
Did you tell them?
Eventually I did, because they asked me, like,
you gotta be real with them. Be unguarded.
I know. I told her, I guess I was mad at first. I'm like, why?
So tell the people. Sure. Should I set the stage?
Okay, you set the stage.
First date, right? And you know, you remember what it was like, you know, first date. You're trying to impress. You're trying to, you know, that line of, you don't want to go too hard, but you don't want to go too light. And I might have went a little hard on the first date, but you know,
no, it was
trying
sweet.
Sweet. Then I didn't go hard. Great. So yeah, we went to had dinner at really awesome. Sorry, you're blocking the camera, but Nope, it's my shirt. Let my
The
frills.
people will thank me. Don't worry.
So we went to our first date. We went on outdoor cafe. At the time, it was like one of the poppin' spots. You know, we don't go there anymore, but in 2011, it was, or 2009, it was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So went to that, had great dinner. Then it was like, oh, we should go, and there was a special thing at Griffith Observatory, look at the stars, and just feels romantic to be looking at a telescope in the middle of the moonlight. And then in our first conversation before the date, we're talking about ice cream. I don't know how we got on that, but you mentioned that your favorite ice cream was this thing called Hokey Pokey, which I had never heard of. And so I just logged it. It's like, okay, let me remember that. And then when I was planning the date, I was like, is there any place in LA that has this Hokey Pokey ice cream? And of course, just happens to be in downtown LA. A little small window of time. It's not even there anymore.
What?
Was a restaurant or ice cream shop called New Zealand Natural Ice Cream.
Yeah.
And I never forget that name. And of course, they have Hokey Pokey there. Yep.
But what's funny is that you always think that we went there, but when we got there, it was closed.
It's not the point. The point is that we logged information.
Yeah, no, that was sweet.
We created the moment, and then it was 3 stops on the first date. That's already feels like it's a lot. Feels like we
if this really did.
If this is a good date and number 2 comes after this, awesome, but let's keep it moving. But then you had the idea, like, hey, I want to go see the beach. And
no, that is so not true. You said
what do you mean? It's not
offered.
True.
I think you offered.
I definitely did not offer.
Really?
No.
Okay, so
I was done. I did my piece. The date went well. I was like,
you were
cool.
done? Are you kidding me? You were not done. You didn't want to leave my presence?
Oh, that's true. I did not want to leave your presence. But I will tell you what my presence did not want was to go to Santa Monica.
But that's hilarious
late
because
night.
Me, Aussie, Kiwi, I had no idea where we were.
Yeah,
I didn't know how
true.
far the beach was. So now there's...
And we start on the east side too.
We start from Pasadena.
A whole tour of LA.
True. Pasadena, Los Feliz, downtown to Santa Monica.
It was a big day.
But you did it. You said, okay, I'll take you to the beach.
Take you to the beach. And we're on the beach and it's, you hear the waves crashing. It's romantic. And we, having a great moment. And then, and then all of a sudden,
I hate this story.
You just jumped on my lap.
No, that's not true. We probably started kissing first.
Started kissing. You're right.
Okay.
You somehow mysteriously.
I found myself on your lap.
You did. What the kids will say, just straddling on my lap on the beach, which I did enjoy for a good brief couple moments, and then I realized, okay, this is going very fast, and just kindly ushered you back to the sand, and then we had a great convo, and I know you hate that story, but I love it because every story has a beautiful beginning. Every person has a journey we go on,
that's true.
and yours was a journey of you couldn't get enough of me.
Well, the thing
which
is,
I totally get it.
The thing is it's funny because those are the moments where you realize how far you really are from like being the person you want to be. And when you're heated in the moment, you're like, oh, this is not even to me, it was not even a big deal.
For sure.
But when you moved me, kindly moved me, I was like, oh, yeah, well, maybe you're right. That was a little like forward. And you were like, hey, I think we need to like slow this down and take our time. Luckily, I mean, maybe I was a little bit embarrassed. I'm sure I was. And then the next moment I was grateful because I'm like, okay, maybe this is the way that you do it to be healthier.
Mm.
So I was very appreciative that you slowed things down and then you were like, okay, let's just take a beat.
Yeah, in some ways it was a boundary that we decided together. Maybe I initiated, but then we got on the same page of, okay, what are the lanes that we want to go as a couple? Mm-hmm. What are the places that we want to venture into? What are the places we want to try to avoid? And boundaries isn't a fun conversation. It seems restricting and it seems old school language, but it could actually be a powerful choice that you make that opens up so much more in your future. So maybe we talk a little bit about boundaries and how we created certain boundaries that helped protect the future that we wanted to create. So even
That's good. I mean, I was gonna say we had a email from a friend.
Is it about boundaries?
Yeah, she talks.
Okay.
She does. She talks about boundaries. So
Okay,
I thought it was
great.
good. And
Oh, you don't have to say the name.
oh, she won't mind.
She won't mind.
Okay.
I haven't asked her, but she won't mind.
We can
we'll
edit.
strike that.
We can edit that. Okay, fine. So the podcast was beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Then she says, this topic desperately needs to be talked about more, especially amongst the singles. The fact that you both had sex with other people prior to marriage, but then together made a commitment to abstain is wild, capital letters. In most of my single friend groups, the belief is once you've gone there, it's a done deal. Abstaining after that is close to impossible. So hearing your story is very encouraging and shows that it can be done. Fighting for a new standard is possible.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
It's true. It is harder, once you've gone there.
Yeah.
And I've had the same conversation with so many people that, hey, you've already done it, so you can't go back. The cat's already out of the bag, whatever metaphor you want to use. So just like keep it moving. So the fact that we both did have sex before we were married with, other people, but then we're able to make that commitment to each other. Did it feel harder for you, knowing that you'd gone there before and that we had yet to go there? Like, was it really, really difficult while we're dating?
Yes. I mean, I think because it was changing how I thought about intimacy, relationships. And I think the biggest thing for me was if you are close physically and you're intimate in any way, then you become closer to each other. Like you find a connection. And I think she actually talks about this later on in the email where she's like, I think intimacy can intensify things. And when you physically cross those lines and you become more physical, the more in love you feel. And I think what was really difficult at first was when you were like, okay, we need to create this boundary. At first, I think I was fighting against it because I thought, well, I think you're going to love me less. Because that's all I had known is if you give, then they would love you more.
Sure.
And then I realized as we progressed on in our relationship that you loved me more the more that I withheld or restrained. And I think like the biggest, although this kind of goes off sex, but it is one of the most important boundaries that we ever did, was when like I used to stay the night at your house. It was like a group of like 7 guys.
Yep. Shout out Mansion in Silver Lake. That was literally the name of it because there's 7 of us. Yeah.
There were so many people in a big house. And I would sleep on the couch because I hated where I was living. And I was so miserable and it was so far and I didn't have a car. Like there were so many logistical reasons why it was easier. And you're like, okay, as long as you stay on the couch, I'm upstairs, then it's fine. And then you had a conversation with someone.
Yeah, I had a conversation with somebody, but also the big thing is I was already having conversations with myself.
And God, yeah.
Don't put that on God. I was with myself at first because I knew. Because I think the only reason I say that is because a lot of times I think we want, it's again the rule, because God said it, I'm just going to do it. But it was way before that because I knew internally, nobody had to tell me, but internally I knew that this isn't the wisest choice, and it's informed by my relationship with Christ, obviously.
Yeah.
And then it was magnified through conversation with friends, which is why it's so important to do life with people.
Yeah.
Because they bring different perspectives. And also it can just be like, when you try to silence a certain thing in your life, it's like that amplifier, and yeah, I had a person who, without any judgment or condemnation, I remember just on a car ride to lunch one day, they said, is this the wisest choice that you could make. And I love that even that's how it was framed. It wasn't, are you sinning? It wasn't like, is this right or wrong, good or evil? It was is this the wisest choice that you guys could be making? And why that like rested deep into my soul is because I wanted to be a person of wisdom. I wanted to be a source of wisdom. I wanted to be fueled by wisdom. And they didn't say anything that my soul wasn't already telling me. They didn't confirm anything that God didn't already like plant inside of my soul. I just had to have the courage to decide, will you choose to be more or will you continue to settle for less? And I remember we had that conversation and you were pissed.
That's not true whatsoever.
You weren't pissed?
I wasn't pissed. That sounds very dramatic. I remember exactly what happened when you told me in the car.
Yes.
We were driving home and then you were like, hey, I've got something to tell you. And you're like, I think that we have to make this a clear boundary that you no longer stay the night in my house. I think I cried and I was upset.
Yeah.
And I felt like rejected.
Yeah.
And I felt like, oh no, now you're not. You're saying you don't want to be with me or you don't want to be near me or some, it felt rejecting. And in that very moment of me feeling rejected, I heard God say, but this is a good thing. Like this is the wisest choice. So I remember going, okay, being pretty quickly like, okay, I get it. We'll make that commitment moving forward. Yep. I love that. Like that's such a good point that when you said that we can choose less for ourselves, that before I was choosing less for myself, like really low. And now like just even the small choices that we make in a relationship, we can choose less.
And we scale it and we try to be like, oh, well, I'm not having sex.
Yeah, so it's not a big
totally
deal.
Fine. But that's the thing for us. Again, it wasn't just about not having sex. It was about being an example of what a healthy relationship could and should look like. It was about the 7 guys in that house and going, if, we may have the strength and the resolve to withhold, but if I, allow you to spend the night and then we make that decision together and we lower the bar, then the bar is lower for everyone in the house who then may not be able to jump over it with the same level of resistance. And then you open up a whole world to, okay, well, they're doing it, so it's okay. And then they put themselves in a jeopardizing situation that I didn't want to be, I don't want to have any part to play in a house that had lowered the standards rather than raised them. And
that's good.
And so it was tough. It sucked driving you home 45 minutes every night at 1 a.m. But it was a boundary that we established because we saw the fruit of what could be created in the future.
Yeah. Well, I remember that maybe I would always pick a fight with you before I left because it was the only thing that got me out of the house was like, fine, I'm leaving. But then you had to drive me. So I was like, get in the car. But I remember having, like, it wasn't perfect, but I was committed to that choice too.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then I remember a few months later, and I was like telling my sister, I was like, yeah, we've decided that, we're not going to stay the night. I'm not going to stay the night here. And we just like created this boundary. And then it like dawned on me. I was like, hang on a minute. Like since we made that choice, Joe has been kinder, more loving. Like you had come closer and I felt closer to you more from not doing it than before. And I was like, that is wild. And that was a whole different, like my mind exploded.
Yeah. And likewise, like that's the beauty of how like true attraction can be like, cultivated. And that's not just physical. It's not just in, the low hanging fruit, right? If the only way you're intimate with somebody is physically, I don't think you've actually gone to a deep level of intimacy.
Dang.
Like that's
That's good.
can be an expression of intimacy, but it's not the baseline. It's not even the crescendo,
No.
right? True intimacy is about essence. It's about frequency. It's about character. And that can you be attracted to somebody not for how they make you feel, but actually about what they unleash inside of you, right? That you want to be more when you're around that person. You're more compassionate. You're fueled by, ambition. That you just want to do more good in the world because of your proximity to them and vice versa. Like that should be the actual baseline and standard of intimacy, not what happens to my body because of like your presence. It should be what happens to my soul when I'm actually in the midst of your presence. And I feel like we had some things that really helped us we did a year long distance, which not a lot of people maybe know about when you were getting your visa. And so that forced us to really develop intimacy through communication.
Yes, that's
and
true.
Intimacy through curiosity and that we had to really fight for it. So then when you moved to LA, we didn't, feel like we had to fall into physical patterns that can, just veer you in a dangerous path. Didn't mean that we never made out. I'm not gonna lie, right? Didn't mean that we didn't have moments of even boundaries that we probably set that we wish we didn't cross and then we did.
Yeah.
But those moments were really powerful because they created a real line in the sand. Like I remember the conversation we had of like all right, for real, where this is no boundary. We're not crossing this boundary. This is like going to be the new standard of how we move forward. It's like having all those moments. Like not spending the night was a moment, right? And then I remember this moment going, hey, okay, this is the line where, we're never going to cross. Making out. Even I remember we had a time we weren't holding hands. Remember that? Or we had a boundary, no holding hands.
No, we had no kissing.
Oh, no kissing. You're right.
And it was the silliest.
Sorry, I was a Mormon. That was my Joseph Smith being, founder of Mormonism was going back there. We was a no kissing. We did it for a little bit, but then we're like,
this is stupid.
This is stupid. Like, we're going too far.
We just wanted to cross that boundary even more.
Yeah, we just went too far.
Yeah, that was.
But I digress to say, there was a moment where I said, hey, we're not going to cross this line. This is our boundary. We're waiting until marriage to have sex, and we're not going to cross it. And here's how I know. And I'm giving you my word so that if you can trust me in my word right now, before the big moments in life, if you can trust me on my word that I will not pass this boundary with you, that we will not cross over it, then 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, when you need to trust me to make a big decision that affects our family to the nth degree, I'm somebody who's trustworthy.
Yeah.
I'm somebody who's proven that I will not make decisions simply by what you can do for me, but I'm actually going to make decisions about how we as a family can move forward together with strength. And that's why it's important.
Yeah.
Whatever boundaries you set, that you don't cross them, it's because it's about your word. It's about your integrity. It's about the character of the life that you're living.
That's so good. Yeah, I realized that one thing that I think we did differently, that was different from any other relationship I had before, was we kept talking about our future. We kept talking about what we wanted to represent. And I think that is super key. It's like, hey, if this was just about you and me, then I don't know, we would have been as strong. But we kept saying like, no, we want to build a marriage that's strong, that people can look to know that marriage works, that marriage is a beautiful thing. And we just got deeper. I loved what you talked about with intimacy, because I think, sometimes you shortchange yourself and you think intimacy or love, like I will receive your love, which is what I feel like I want in this moment with you, is through physical action. And I realized actually you were falling in love with me because of who I was and who I was becoming. And that was far greater, that you knew me and you knew how tough it was to make this choice again and again and again and again. But
Yeah.
every time I held on and I stayed true to that. And I never asked you ever again, like, can I stay the night? But that was just like a line of commitment that we made, that you liked the person I was becoming, or you started to love the person I was becoming. And I was proud of the person I was becoming.
Yeah.
And I think how sad it is if you jump those things and pretend that they don't matter, and you miss those conversations, those hard conversations of withholding, of like not crossing that boundary and then having a conversation, even though it felt awkward because I've never had those conversations.
Sure. Yeah.
They made us stronger. Like they made us more committed to something far deeper. It's like we were drilling a hole for the tree that we were going to grow. And we were like, we're going to go as deep as we can so that it's the tallest, strongest tree. But those are the things that people don't see, the conversations that no one was around for. But we fought for those moments, and I saw you in a different light and you saw me in a different light. And that's what true intimacy looks like.
Yeah. And the power of sacrifice, right?
That's true too.
Of even as simple as that, you know, like we have this conversation with a lot of our friends and people who make the progression from single to dating to engage, right? Is the common thing is you move in together, you know, or we have friends that are dating or engaged and they're living with each other. And sometimes it's not a big deal at all on either person. They don't care and they've agreed that we're going to get married. And so why wait? There's other scenarios where one person's really struggling with it or feels convicted but doesn't know how to engage it. And everybody comes at it from different angles. But I know for us, we said, and this is what we counsel people, is that it's way more important that you make decisions based off character than on convenience. And a lot of times that's the choice of living together, you know. And again, this is primarily this part we're talking about in a faith context. If you're not a person of faith, you don't believe in Jesus, there's no standard, there's no, you know, conversation, because it's different when you've invited Jesus into your story. Then it takes on a whole new light. And so those are the hard conversations we have with friends that are like, I know that's probably what I should do, but man, we're spending so much money on rent. You know, we can't have two places. We're trying to save for a wedding, and I get it. And that's what we could say. Hey, we understand. You know how we understand? Because we had the same conversations. You know? We had the same challenges. We just decided as a couple. Then again, we shared this a little bit on the last podcast that we were going to be the one.
Yeah.
We were going to be an example that you could do it, and why it's important is because if you can make choices based on character and values rather than convenience, it will give fuel and momentum and catalyze the health of your relationship moving forward. And that's why the boundary conversation is really essential.
Yeah.
Because it's you going, I'm going to say no to myself.
That's good.
I'm going to say no to what's easy, right? I'm going to say no now. That's the other thing, is sometimes just the power of delayed gratification. We live in a time where everything is like now. It's quick. It's, you know, give it to me yesterday. But some of the more beautiful things in life and the things that are going to last are the things that you have to wait for.
But I think that's the thing. It's like sometimes what I was, I guess, trying to say even before is that you can shortchange yourself because you think I can get to that quicker. I can get to that result quicker by going this route.
Sure.
But then you shortchange yourself from all the hard conversations you can have and how you can get to know each other in a deeper way, that you'll miss out if you just jump to sex as an example. And then you think you're further along in your relationship and you think you're closer. You're like, oh, I think we're ready for marriage.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's like one of the other conversations we had, although it's got nothing really to do with sex. But one of the things was, I was like, I want to get married.
Yes.
And you were like, no, you had to have that hard conversation with me. You were like, I just don't think we're ready yet. And it was crushing.
No,
But-
it was even harder and worse than that, because
Yeah.
you were asking like for a legitimate time frame. Like, okay, when do you think we're gonna get married? Like,
Yeah.
it's just so I can mentally prepare. Like, because you knew like it was progressing forward and like we were gonna get married, everything. So you're
Yeah.
like, okay,
And people kept asking me, and
100%.
that pressure, like
Yeah.
circling that
so
moment.
much pressure. And yeah, I remember it was really hard because you were like, when are we gonna get married? I just need to know. Give me like a ballpark figure, and it was like, not anytime soon, because I don't think we're ready. And it crushed you, it crushed me, because I wanted to marry you. Like, I saw that in our future, but I do feel like there was a lot of battles that we had to fight.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of voices and pressure. Green card, you know, like people like I remember family members being like, "Hey, are you gonna get married? Because then it'll be so much easier because you'll
Yeah.
have your green card and all
Yeah.
this." And we just didn't, and that's why I just kept coming back to that baseline, that foundation. We didn't want to do things just because they were easy.
Yeah, I remember when you told me, again, we were in the car. I guess a lot of conversations happen when we're in the car.
It's true. On
So
the couch
only-
and in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're dropping me off, and you said, hey, I don't think I even asked you about the ballpark figure. You just said, hey, I wanted to have a real conversation about like our future. And I know you think, we may get married soon, which I hope we do, but I just want to let you know that it's not anytime soon.
Mhm.
And I remember when you told me, it crushed me. Like, it's like I had been broken up with.
Mm.
I felt like, oh, that's it. We're done. I don't know why I was very dramatic, but. And then I walked into the house. I was like staying with friends, Jocelyn and Natalie. And I woke up in the morning, and I remember sitting on the couch, and I was talking to Natalie, and I was like, yeah, Joe told me that he doesn't want to marry me anytime soon. And I'm crushed. I feel so sad. And she's like, I think that's amazing. I'm like, really? And she's like, she didn't believe in Jesus, but she was like, I think that's cool that he would have the courage to tell you the truth, even though he knew it would hurt you, and tell you exactly how he feels, and tell you, like, we need to wait, and we don't have to rush this. Like, I think that's pretty amazing. And I remember thinking, yeah, that's the type of man I actually do want to marry, is someone that would risk the present uncomfortability to tell me the truth, so that I would know what page we really were on. Because I was thinking, oh, we're going to get married you were going to propose to me any day now. And that pressure, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And the moment that you took that away, but you risked everything to tell me, I was like, oh, that's the type of person that I can truly trust.
Now, I wonder if, it's actually really good. I wonder if that's a way that we avoid telling each other the truth. I wonder if sex
Dang.
is a tool that we use. I'm just going to go there, but a tool we use to manipulate each other when we don't have the courage to tell the truth. That we use it as a way to create false intimacy.
Yeah.
We use it as a way to bridge the gap when the chemistry's off, or when there's not like resonance in the soul, and we think, okay, well, at least there's the physical act that we can go there together. But I wonder how many times we've used sex as a scapegoat for actually telling people the truth that you're not worth my future. You're not worth committing to at the highest of levels, and because really that's the story that waiting is about. That's the story that boundaries are about. It's a conversation about commitment, and that I'm gonna commit these things to you to let you know how much value I have for you, how much love I have for you, how much sacrifice I'm willing to take on your behalf.
Yeah.
And I just think sex is way more beautiful and way more important and way more essential than a tool we use to communicate with each other.
Well, I think that's the important part, is that not only, like, I guess, to manipulate, but you may not have been thinking that you're manipulating.
Sure.
You're just avoiding the truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're avoiding the conversation. You're avoiding that you may not even like the person.
Yeah.
So it's better just to start making out and head that direction, and you get something out of it, rather than have the conversation, deeper conversation, and find out the person. And is this the person you actually want to be with?
Yeah.
Is this the person you want to start a life with? And if not, when you're not having sex, I think it's easier to leave. But when you have sex, it's like, it's got your claw. It has you by the claws, you know?
Yeah.
And you think, oh no, well, I mean, we're good. And it's because you just avoided all the hard conversations and you jumped to this thing that's given you a false sense of reality.
And a false sense of security.
Yes, that's true too.
Yeah. Because, at least if he's, in bed with me, maybe he'll choose to do life with me. And that's the part where I feel so sad for my friends, especially my girlfriends, I see my girlfriends, we have a lot of girlfriends that
we do
are trying to find that thing that's missing, right? It could be intimacy with a partner, with a relationship, could be even just issues that you have with your own past that you're wrestling with, that you're trying to fill. And it saddens me and it breaks my heart when I have friends that I know are struggling to fill the void in their soul, and they think this person in this moment will fill it, but it never will.
Yeah.
It's temporary, because in our soul leaks. Yeah. And when we don't fill it with the right things, we're left empty all the same.
Yeah, or even worse. It's just like the chasm gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then instead of going to another place for that wholeness, you keep going back to the same thing over and over and over. And it's just, like I said in the first podcast, like it erodes at your soul. So, yeah. I think one other thing, practical things that our friend asked us in the email, she said, I would love to hear more about some practical things that you both did in order to keep the commitment. How long did you all date? I think that matters, because if you're dating someone for 4 or 5 years, abstaining is going to become harder. Did you all...
That's just harder. I'm going to just say this. If you're dating with somebody for 4 or 5 years and you're not married, it doesn't just become harder, it becomes impossible.
Yeah.
You're lying if you think that you're going to be with somebody that long. Because one of two things is happening. If you're with somebody for 5 years and you're not having sex, you've lost the spark. You shouldn't be able to be with somebody that long and not want to go there with them. Yeah. So that's a red flag, But the other thing is, if you're with somebody that long, or even longer, we know for 7, 8 years, and there's no judgment, no condemnation, but we do want to be honest. If that person isn't willing to commit to you for your future and put a ring on it after 8 years, it's not going to happen, girl.
Yeah, or after 2 years, or... I mean,
I feel like there's a big difference between 2 years and 8 years, but just going and have the respect for yourself to know, and the value for yourself that you deserve more. That if that matters to you, if it doesn't matter to you, that's okay. But if you're acting like it doesn't matter, but it really does, you do have to have that moment where you draw the line in the sand, have an ultimatum to go, hey, I've been girlfriend long enough. Yeah. I've been fiance long enough, but that's not what I want. I actually want to build a life with somebody who wants to commit their life to me. And so it's either me forever or me, I'm gone.
Yeah. Or vice versa, if you're a guy and you're dating someone and you know this isn't the person for you.
For sure.
Then why stay in the relationship?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's harder the longer you're with somebody, for sure, because it's impossible, because you're having sex.
And also, this has come up in the past with some relationships where people are like, well, we're not having sex, but we do live together.
Sure.
And I remember you bringing up a really interesting point. You were like, if you can live with each other and not have sex with each other, then something's wrong too.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're sharing a bed, you're roommates, you're not, partners.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be able to lay in a bed night after night after night and not want to jump their bones.
Yeah, exactly.
There's something that's off.
Okay. Did you all take trips together? And if so, did you all share a room? These are the topics that we talked through with my friends, and I would love for you guys to discuss it. Then she says,
Well, let's answer that first. Yeah.
okay.
Did we take trips together? Yes, not often. Well, a lot of times we
No,
took.
we didn't.
We did. Let me.
Okay, to
I'll
Australia.
refresh your memory. Yeah. But when we did take trips, we did a lot of times with groups, either with groups with family, so it wasn't just us. But there was one time, remember, it was in Australia, and we don't have to get into all the details, but there was like a house, and it was one of those things where something was off in our spirit, and it just didn't feel right, and so we were gonna stay the night, just you and me at this house.
Oh, yes.
And we didn't, and I'm so glad we
Yes.
didn't.
Oh my gosh,
know?
yeah.
Um,
Again, that was out of convenience. We're like, oh, okay, we could just stay at this house. It's fine. It's
sure.
like by this lake and it's so beautiful. And then we were there for like an hour or two and we're like, this isn't good. Let's leave.
This is wrong. Let's get
And we
out.
literally got back on the
ferry.
boat, on the
Yeah,
ferry.
it was like a ferry, couple hours to the house, and we're just like, no, this is wrong. This is off. And so that's also
That's a good
maybe
point.
there's
I
something in
totally
that
forgot
going, when your soul tells you something, listen. And when you hear it, act on it.
Yes.
That's the key, right? Is not
Yeah.
just having a gut instinct, but acting on that gut instinct.
And it really does help when the other person trusts your gut instinct. And you had
Yeah.
an instinct too, that you're like, yeah, I don't feel good about this. Then we both were like, okay, we're more powerful and stronger when we're committed to the same thing, because when those challenges come up, then we know the right answer.
For sure. Yep. But yeah, that was a thing and that was before we had made that commitment to even going even sleeping on a couch the same night. It was like one of those markers. It was like, this was a marker that led to the next marker.
Yeah, that's a good point.
To the next marker. So yeah, we never took a overnight together. We never, spent the night together, until we were married, because we said, again, it's about the boundaries, about the wisdom.
Yeah.
And we want to put ourselves in position that
win.
is going to win, and so it's just not worth it. It's not worth lowering the bar for convenience when it could jeopardize everything that you've been wanting to build.
Dang. That's good.
So we didn't, and because we didn't, you can too.
This is true. You can wait. There'll be great trips once you're married.
Yes, and it's so much more fun now that we get to go on trips and we don't get 2 rooms anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
It's way more cost efficient.
We also talk about, so with my single friend groups, we also talk a lot about bad fruit and or results that sex before marriage produces. For example, sex more than often makes red flags appear pink. It causes emotions to intensify a lot quicker, which is what we spoke about before. It creates a false sense of connection and intimacy. Is soul ties a real thing? And what does that even mean? I have some friends that use the scripture, it's better to marry than to burn, to justify marrying someone
Better
they
to marry
shouldn't.
than to burn, yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard that before, but I'm sure that's American.
That's like the Message translation probably.
Yeah.
It is. There's a verse in the scriptures that talks about, if you're like so burning with desire, it's better to just get married.
That's a terrible.
Than to let it consume you,
Yeah.
Beck on the record is disagreeing with the scripture, so
I guess that's true. That's a good point. Am I disagreeing? I'm just saying.
Hey, you can do whatever you want, girl.
No, I think that's pulling out of context, though. It's like, yes, okay, marry instead of. I get the purpose of it.
Yes.
Well, the intention behind that scripture is, hey, like, then marry the person and choose to commit to that person if you're going to go there.
Yeah.
Well, that's how I'm going to read it.
It's dangerous when you get into your own interpretations. We'll do another podcast episode about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's dangerous. It's dangerous when you put yourself in a position where you are ignoring the very thing that your soul is already trying to tell you and communicate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talking about red flags becoming pink. So that's why it's not wise when you're, if you're wanting to have a healthy relationship, wanting to build towards marriage, wanting to wait and create a baseline of, commitment.
Yeah.
And then you go there, you definitely are going to begin avoiding the very things that you saw before.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, he's not that selfish. He's kind to me.
Yeah.
You know, he's really ambitious when we're together. You know, other people just don't see him like I see him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, when you go there physically with somebody, it can cloud your judgment on
That's true.
character issues.
Yeah.
You can begin to justify cautions. You know, even if you don't use the word red flag, but just things that you're noticing about if that's what you want in a life partner.
Yeah.
You know, and the reason things get cloudy is because there is the facade of love connected to it, right? Because a lot of times we think sex equals love. It doesn't. Because love isn't about desire. It's about sacrifice. And when you can create rhythms of sacrifice, right? See, we didn't have sex before we got married, but we had love before we got married. We had, you know, commitment before we got married. We had intention before we got married. You know, we did things that were going to create healthy rhythms that we believe we could build on the other side of our wedding night. But we weren't doing it simply for the desire or for the pleasure, right? And I think that's the danger of sex before marriage, is that pleasure becomes the root. It becomes the fuel, as opposed to sacrifice and servanthood, which is what every healthy relationship is based on.
Yeah.
It's all rooted in love, and the most beautiful expression of love will always be sacrifice.
That's true.
And that for us was why it was a value, and it was something that was really important to us, because we wanted to be known by our love, not just by what we could do for each other.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I was going to say real quick that I feel there could be people listening who are having sex in their relationship, but
I'm sure
they're
there
like,
are. Yeah. I hope there are. Yeah.
no, before being married.
No, I know. That's what I meant too.
Oh, okay.
Just meaning we want the world to be a part of Unguarded.
Listening to it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but say if they are hearing this and they're like, oh my gosh, I think like, I don't want to do this anymore. Is it worth it, since is it worth abstaining from sex before we're married if we've already had sex?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. You know, like it's all about progress. It's about growth. It's about development. It's about transformation. You be honest about where you're starting.
Yeah.
And you move forward. You don't move backwards. You know, that's the thing. Regret always has us looking backwards. Development, growth, transformation always has us moving forward.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful. I'm not the person I used to be, but I can't wait to meet the person that I'm becoming.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to every season of our life, every, you know, arena of our life. And definitely when you're talking about somebody who's maybe going, yeah, we're sexually active right now, but I don't want to, or we don't want to, right? It's got to start with one person.
Yeah.
It can start with one. It could spark
the other person,
right? And then you begin moving together in a new future, in a new foundation. And yes, I believe absolutely you can begin to make shifts in your life and begin to become the very person, and then have the type of relationship that you really destined, that you know you're destined for, and then know you have the capacity to build. And just knowing that's going to be hard.
Yeah.
I love that it's hard.
Yeah. One thing that you just said that, like, something went off in my mind is about regret. And I think, like, even in the first episode, I would have, in the past, would have said, like, I regretted all that, which I do. I wish I made better choices. But I just realized I think regret makes you stuck in the past and makes you feel a lot of shame. So you're carrying so much shame because you regret all these choices. And as I'm talking to you now, I'm like, oh, I think I'm like free of it, which is when we believe in God, that God's like, I forgive all your past mistakes. And I don't think of them when I see you. And I think we get locked, or I got locked in the past, and I was carrying so much shame from it that it wasn't allowing me to move forward quicker.
Sure.
And being with you, because you were so I don't know, like excited and happy. You're like, this is fine. If we hit a roadblock, like this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. This means we can like fight through this together, fight this giant together, and get better. But everything in my past was like, if you hit the hard parts of me, you're gonna leave. And all of that was connected. The shame, the regret, it was all holding me back. And you were the first person that kept telling me like, it's okay, we can move forward through this. And so now talking to you, like now being married 13 years, I just realized what a different person I am. Like, that's why I think I could have that, even though it was sad to have that conversation in the first episode about sex, because I was sad for that girl that thought less or chose less. But now I realize I'm actually free. Because my whole future is lying ahead of me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just so grateful that I seem to cry a lot in these pods, but I'm so grateful that you were like a representation of Jesus in my life that said it's okay. And you're not your past. And I can't wait to see your future.
Yep. And look at the future that you created, that you built, that you fought for. And I'm very grateful that you became the epitome of resolve and resiliency. You became the standard for it. Past does not shape who you have to become in your future. And I know there's so many people listening right now that they're in the middle of that same. And that's why
that's true.
We're having these conversations, you know. That's why I love that even if you don't agree with us, I'm so thankful that you're listening to us.
Yes.
So thankful that you're open to the possibility of a new way, because that is what shifted me. That I just became open to the possibility that there could be a new way. That I saw it in others, and I saw the life that they had that I didn't.
Yeah.
And it was just like a magnet that kept pulling me closer and closer into who I knew at my core I could be. And if that's you now and you're listening to us and we're having this conversation and you know there's more in you, you know you're selling for less, that's why this is essential.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about sex. It's not really about sex.
Yeah, I just realized that literally could be for anything. If you're settling for less in any part of your life. But I feel like once you settle less for one thing, and it's easy to settle less for other things too.
Yep. And that is, it's because everything's connected.
Yeah.
And even last thing connected to the email from our friend, asking about soul ties, like, are there soul ties? Yes, because sex is a spiritual act. It's not just a physical act. We misrepresent it sometimes, and that it feels like it could just be an exchange. But it's a soul tie because it's spirits coming together. It's souls coming together. It doesn't mean that you can't heal from that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can't be redeemed from that. It doesn't mean that you can't begin to establish a new version of you in the midst of the shambles and the destruction. Because yes, there's a tie, because our souls are always being tied to one another.
Wow.
And maybe you're here and you're like, I just feel like I'm all knotted up and I don't even know where to begin. That's the beauty of what happens when you just open up yourself to God. That He can actually do the things that we can't do on our own. That when we just place our life in His hands, all the mess, all the brokenness, all the knots, and to say, I've done all that I can do. And then He takes the mess of our life, He breathes His life into it, and He says, now let's create something new and beautiful together. And I have a feeling that there's a lot of people listening to this right now. That is actually your first step. Your first step isn't to figure out how you need to stop sleeping with your partner or stop sleeping around. Your first step is, how do I actually get to the place where I can trust somebody with my life more than myself? And then let God do what only He can do. we don't go this route in all the pods, but I feel like it's important in this conversation, that if you're just like here and you don't know how to get out of the mess, we are here to tell you there's somebody who is ready to receive you. You just have to choose to give him every part of yourself. And then you will not only hope that a new you will be unleashed, you'll begin creating a brand new you that's far more beautiful than even you could have imagined. So know that you have what it takes. It just requires the faith of one step.
That's good.
All right, won't you close us out?
Yeah, well, I hope you enjoyed this pod and this episode. And if you received anything from it, then, and you think other people would enjoy this conversation, then share it with them. And follow us on YouTube, listen on Spotify, however you listen. We're just so grateful that you are along the journey with us. And we love doing this with you. So thank you for the messages. Thank you for the encouragement, the posting about this podcast. And we're so humbled by this, right? We can't believe we are doing it. It's a lot of work, but it's so worth it because you're worth it. So we love you so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.